All right, we doing this?
Yep.
Yeah.
Don't we give 30 seconds of kind of dead air?
Like 5.
Okay.
5's more than enough. And fuck, my mic's moving again. God damn it. Right, I'm just gonna have to hold it. Cool. All right. How you been?
Good, and yourself?
Pretty good. Long time no see.
Long time, yes. It's always a great time.
Always a great time. All right, tell me what you know about giants. You think giants are real?
What giants are we talking about? Like the Jolly Green Giant? The Jack and the Beanstalk Giant?
Definitely not
The,
children's nursery rhymes giants.
what about the Iron Giant?
Iron giant's real. Definitely real. North Korea or something's got one of those hidden there in a bunker somewhere ready to be unleashed on us.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Or a kaiju?
Yeah.
Or those robots that fight the kaiju?
They need something to fight the Japanese when they unleash their hidden bioweapons.
That's true. What do I know about giants? I mean, other than mythical stories, it's funny because I know we talked about this topic, and I was listening to a podcast, and they started talking about giants. But other than maybe Goliath
From the Bible.
from the Bible, would be a giant that I heard of, and other than that, I've heard of a few different tales, but. As giants, what do I know about them? Do they exist, or are they just above average tall men?
Very possible. I mean, we watched the only reason I wanted to do this one is because you showed me the Giant of Kandahar, which I'd never heard of, which was an interesting one. One of the claims of a real giant.
Yeah, so I mean, that Giant of Kandahar was it seemed to be like a prehistoric man. We were listening to that story, and I know they were talking about biblical stories in the Book of Enoch and being the Nephilim, but I believe in that documentary, or not that documentary, but we were watching, it was a first-hand account of some special forces in the U.S. military and other armies that were out in Afghanistan that observed giants. But this one specifically, they battled it and fought it, and they made to sign NDAs and were prohibited to talk about it.
Allegedly, yeah. Yeah, it was in supposedly in Afghanistan in 2002. When I mean, it's one of those things that's circulated through like online forums and cryptozoology communities, but doesn't have any backing. Apparently, it was popularized by some radio host named Steve Quayle, who talked about it in like the mid 2000s on his radio show. According to his account, the events occurred allegedly in a remote mountainous region of Kandahar in Afghanistan when a U.S. Army squad disappeared during a routine patrol. A special operations task force, no one's ever specified which branch or which force it was, but it's speculated it was either the Rangers or the Green Berets, was dispatched to locate them. They find a cave entrance surrounded by like scattered military gear, and then a giant ginger pops out between 12 to 15 feet tall, which is 3.6 to 4.5 meters in proper units, with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, and 2 rows of teeth, apparently, holding a big spear, charged them, killed one of them by stabbing him, identified as a fellow named Dan, no surname included, and then was just blasted down with M4 carbines, as you would expect. And apparently a Barrett M107 anti-material rifle was what brought it down. So this thing's either like highly bullet resistant, or whoever wrote this initial story was like, what's the coolest guns we could put in this?
That's a big fucking gun.
Yeah, anti-material rifle. I mean, the M4 I don't know the military issued weapons for the US. Is an M4?
M4 would be like an AR-15. It's a variant of it.
For special operations, or is that standard issue? It's not standard.
I mean,
issue.
it's pretty standard issue. The M4, the AR-15. It's all they'll shoot the usually shoot the civilian round is the 226 and the NATO round is the 556. It's just packed different. The 556 comes out a lot faster. And even though the bullet isn't that big, the damage it does, the entrance could be relatively small, but the blowout and the blowback, as soon as it hits flesh, it's designed to kill.
It's designed to wreck giants, apparently, or at least anti-material rifles.
Right. I mean, if you were in a shootout and you were in your car and you weren't behind the engine block, you'd get shredded.
Yeah, and punching through steel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this fella's described as wearing crude animal hide moccasins and smelt like decay, probably on account of all the shit it was eating. And then it was airlifted out by a helicopter in a cargo net to an undisclosed military base and then moved to a new location. Soldiers allegedly signed non-disclosure agreements, were told they couldn't discuss it. Years later, one of these supposed soldiers or witnesses comes forth and he says, "It's because people have the right to know what's happening on our planet." Although the skeptics would point out no official U.S. Department of Defense or Department of the Army documentation's ever been released, discovered, or any sort that would verify that being real. There's no personnel records, mission logs, casualty reports, photographs. There are fact-checking organizations like Snopes and the Military Times. They call it unverified folklore, citing, as they said, its total lack of verifiable evidence and reliance on anonymous sources. Also, a bunch of its described features, red hair, extra digits, double teeth, cannibalistic cave habitat, mirror the old Nephilim myths. So, people are thinking like it really is just a story that's been stretched. I did find a guy on Reddit on a comment on that who was saying that like it's almost identical to an old Turkish folklore tale, minus the guns, but going back like a few hundred years, where they're like it's literally the same thing.
Just getting repeated.
Yeah, a group of soldiers went missing. The ruler at the time sends in his elite guards. They show up, a six-fingered giant, red hair, messes them all up, and they bring him down with a giant spear or something in return.
And I believe it was that specific giant. Going back to the story that we watched, I know you did some research after that, but that team, that special army, that special unit was in that region looking for missing soldiers, and they when they came upon that cage, they saw like bones and equipment, and they believed that the giant had killed previous soldiers,
killed and eaten them.
Yeah,
That's
so
the idea. Yeah,
a lot of these giants seem to be cannibals. I've heard of some other stories as well. They seem to have red hair. Seems to be a common thread amongst some of
apparently
them.
that's a common trait in the Nephilim stories, is like colored hair.
So
Distinguish them from humans, probably.
So yes. So what it seems like, going to the Nephilim, there is no exact height on them, but some of the descriptions have them over 450 feet tall.
All over the place.
So they're not just regular people. They're actual giants.
They're old Sumerian and Mesopotamian. I think it goes back, and then the Hebrews have their adaptation where it's called the Nephilim, which just means where was it? God, I can't find the description of it. Somewhere in my notes. I think it just means like it's translated as giants, but its exact meaning is debated. But there's a few different interpretations of what they are. Some say that they're like demigods, beings, and then some say that they're like what happens when an angel sleeps with a human and has a kid, and then that's what a Nephilim is. It's all over the place,
right? And they would like grow, double in size every month or every year. Or something.
Yeah, they could be. They're understood as being of great size and strength, or of great power and authority, but no real descriptions of their exact size. something called the Brown Driver Briggs lexicon defines it as giants, but they explicitly warn that like the etymology of the word is still unclear, and they're just using giant as a placeholder until they have a better option. Some of the Hebrew scholars tie it to the roots of to fall, or at least that's like the Hebrew characters and syntaxes and such, interpreting it as either the fallen ones or the ones who make others fall. So it could be in their interpretation like fallen beings, or even possible like demonic, like they're here to bring the fall of you and those that they encounter.
So I know they were doing a lot of not evil things, but messing around with humans, God's creations, destroying them. So that was one of the reasons why the flood, I guess, came to kind of destroy and cleanse the earth.
Yeah. I mean, the flood came, I'm pretty sure it was to deal with like Sodom, and like God believed that there was too much sin. I mean, like, you know about the city of Sodom and Gomorrah?
Yes.
So Sodom just being like a full city of buttfuckers. We literally named Sodom, which makes me think like, if Sodom was dudes doing sodomy, what was Gomorrah? Like, who was Gomoring? And what
gooning?
is that?
Were they just gooning?
It was the
Non-stop
city
gooning?
of gooners. Yeah. But yeah. I mean, so the Nephilim's a bit all over the place. I found all kinds of cooler other stuff along those lines, though. A whole bunch of, I mean, you're familiar with like mythological giants. Which ones do you know off the top of your head?
I mean, mythological.
Because every culture has a giant of some sort, whether it's a god or just
Cthulhu.
Cthulhu's H.P. Lovecraft's creation. It's not real.
It's not real. I mean, which one are these? I guess the biggest one that I've heard of is actually some. I think it's in Ireland. Some giant in Ireland fought with another giant, and there's like a mountain range, and they say that's where he died, or that's where he laid, and he turned into a mountain range.
I think that might be. I've got this one here: the Fomorians in Celtic and Irish mythology. Monstrous giants, part demonic, associated with the sea and other natural destructive forces. And then something called Balor of the Evil Eye, who was a Fomorian. He was a one-eyed giant whose gaze could kill. So just killed you by looking at you.
Like a cyclops?
Yeah, Cyclops. Leader of the Fomorians, monstrous sea giant. So, I mean, in their mythology, giant just meant enormous creature. Didn't necessarily mean human-like in shape. But then they've got the... I mean, you'd be familiar with the Titans from Greek mythology. Yeah. Those giant ones were pretty cool. You have a deep dive in like Norse mythology?
No.
I went down in that one for a bit. There's like the Jotnar of, I think it's of Svartalheim. They're like they're layers of reality. Their mythology, there's a fella named Ymir who was the first giant, and all the other gods just murked him and then turned him into the world. So, like his flesh became earth, blood the seas, bones mountains. The skull was turned into the sky. So even the Norse believed that the sky was a dome. So
well, it keeps on going back. All these conspiracy theories are just
flat
tied
Earth
together.
Keeps going back. It all ties together. Yeah. Some other cool ones. One thing I really did find that I found interesting was the Cyclops in Greek mythology. And they think they figured out where that came from just based on like remains and such that were preserved, and supposedly the skulls of Cyclops. I even found one of your people though. You ever heard of the Quinametsin?
No.
So these are the Aztec Nahua giants.
Oh, I'm Jewish. What do you? I'm saying. Tell me. No, I'll tell you. So hold on. Before you go into that, like I said, I was listening to this podcast that literally, I know we talked about this. This would be our new topic or our next topic a few weeks ago. And last week I happened to come across a podcast I listened to in Spanish, and they talk, it's about legends and myths, and they talk about, like diabolical or haunting or weird shit, right? So they were talking about specifically about these giants, and they talked about that Irish one. They talked about also that they found an island off of the Strait of Magellan, which I believe is off of the Argentinian coast, and they came close to an island and they just saw this massive dude, 10 to 13 feet tall. They somehow come to the island. They befriend this giant. The giant takes them back to his village. They befriend all these giants, and what they wanted to do was capture a few. They tricked them, said, "Hey, look, put on this jewelry on your neck and on your hands and on your feet." Well, they end up enslaving them, throwing them on the boat, trying to take them back to Europe to show them off to the Spanish crown, because even though Magellan was Portuguese, I believe he was sponsored by the Spanish. And they end up dying on the way back. And what do you know? They throw the bodies overboard. Why didn't they just take them back to
Yeah.
to show the to show the
I
to show
imagine
the
a 14-foot dude would probably be eating 3 to 4 times what anyone else was. So
True.
bring a couple of them, you're not at all prepared ration-wise. How sketchy that they toss them overboard. As is always the case with these mythical creatures. Oh, yeah, they died, so we tossed them.
Right.
Yeah.
So another one that they talked about was this the Loveland Cave in Nevada. These giants. So back in the day, there were these giants also, and they were running amok, killing people, killing livestock with the natives in Native America in the United States. So a bunch of these groups, these Native American groups, stopped fighting for a few seconds and banded together to try to kill these giants, and they were able to corral them and chase them into a cave. And what they did was start a fire outside the cave. Some of the giants died due to smoke inhalations. The ones that left or tried to run outside were immediately killed by the group of Indians, Native Americans. The funny thing about that one is that they discovered this cave. Well, the indigenous people would talk about it as superstition and mythology for a long time in their oral culture. And white explorers, Americans, or whatever you want to say, went to the cave to try to for guano, for bat droppings.
Oh, yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's a really good fertilizer. So it's funny, when they were digging down, taking out feet of guano to sell it, they ended up finding a sandal size 15. So
I don't know how big is a size 15.
size 15 is 30 centimeters.
30 centimeters? It's pretty big. I wear a 13, although I don't know if it's a US 13.
I wear a 12.
Yeah.
US 12.
So it's just a big fella.
Yeah, but big fella back
Yeah, back then.
400 or 500 years ago, 300 years ago.
He was either eaten well
Or eaten well, or just a genetic freak.
Well, yeah. Well, one of the explanations I found for a lot of these would have been gigantism, which is rare but not as rare as you'd think. Like, think Andre the Giant.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he had gigantism. It makes you just disproportionately large. Also has implications. I think your liver, your heart, some other organs just don't function well because they're enlarged. But if you had that mutation, you just naturally get a lot bigger. And so, in a world where everyone's like 5'2", 5'3" at best, you get one dude who's 7 feet, and everyone's like, I saw him, he was 15 feet tall, and he had hands like fucking saucepans. And he was probably wearing, and they would have worn giant shoes because their feet would be disproportionately large compared to their height.
Right. Well, these giants, or these people who I forgot the tallest man in the world, but he was almost 3 meters tall.
Yeah, I think I went to the Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum when I was in the Gold Coast,
Uh-huh.
and they have a wax replica of him. And yeah, he's like a little over 3 meters tall. It's insane. You stand next to him and your head is at like dick level.
Well, for the average person or me, I'm probably at his thigh, so
Yeah,
below
just
dick
above
level.
his kneecap.
Just
Yeah, yeah. That's it. Yeah, so they're there. I mean, that's a theory for a lot of giants throughout history, including recorded ones of real actual records exist of them. They're thinking
well,
they probably had some sort of genetic mutation that just made them disproportionate. They think some scholars think like Goliath from David and the Goliath was probably someone with gigantism, which is why he was so big compared to everyone else.
right. So, and back then the average height was probably like 5'4", you know what I mean, or
Yeah,
less.
yeah,
So if he was 6 feet tall, he'd be a giant.
he would be. And then of course they're wider. Like every part of their body's just thicker and bigger than it's supposed to be because muscle growth isn't regulated properly. It's like a growth hormone disorder.
Right. So I mean, if you go back and you're talking about Andre the Giant, and we're talking about that guy from Ripley's Believe It or Not who grew.
Even like Yao Ming, who's still alive today.
Right.
Bro,
But
he's
but
like
these tall people, maybe now with modern science, they could live longer. But I think that dude died at 19 because the body isn't used to. Our bodies weren't made to. The heart overreacts. The heart's
yeah,
has to pump more blood and
yeah.
and works more. I mean, you see it with people with overweight. That
Also,
guy ended up
people-
dying. That guy ended up dying from an infection from a blister that he didn't even feel on his foot. And by the time he got it treated or looked at it, it was so infected that they couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So
And people back then were not looking after themselves. You go anywhere outside of really like Asia and the Middle East, and people were drinking beer for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because it was the only safe consumable water source. Because unless you've got like thick running streams, it's why like my people from England were just so fucked for so long and have the stereotype of fucked up teeth. Is going back through almost all of English and British history, people drank hard cider. Like kids were given hard cider for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Admittedly, at the time, I think it was peaking at like 2% alcohol, but it was because you just couldn't drink from the fresh water sources and people didn't know how to sterilize it. Nobody boiled water unless it was for cooking.
well, not only that, I mean, also that cider or that beer served a purpose because it's literally liquid bread, and
Yeah.
and when you didn't have food, you're at least eating calories. It might not be
Yeah.
the healthiest form of substance, but
Yeah.
you're putting gas in your engine.
So add fucked up organs from a genetic disorder, and you can imagine why most of these guys probably did drop dead pretty young.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So, you know, you get these extremes, and this doesn't necessarily has to do with gigantic. Well, yeah, it actually does maybe because we look at some of these world strongmen and they come from colder climates,
Yeah.
extremes. You know what I mean? Or we look at people from South Pacific and they're massive. We look at animals, the polar bear, massive.
Yeah.
The blue whales, where do they normally hang out? In the cold waters of the North and the South Pole.
Sure.
They're all over the place. You look at there's the grizzly bear, but then there's like a Kodiak bear, which is similar to a grizzly but way bigger.
Yeah.
So do these colder climates, these extreme climates, because you have to build fat, you
Yeah.
have to build certain.
Maybe it's like they had to adapt for the extra fat to be held on, more muscle, more size, to be able to pull yourself around.
Is that why these dudes in, like I said, Finland, Norway, Magnus Magnuson from, throwing kegs over their heads?
Yeah, possibly. It's also possible that like a lot of them came from Viking raiding style cultures, where if you weren't big enough, you were less likely to survive going into battles, and so it just or get laid. So there's selective there. And then you look at a lot of like Finland, German, Sweden, stuff like that. They were just doing straight up, what do you call it, eugenics for a long time. Like baby came out and they just looked a little off. The doctor would be like, "This is a bad one," and just smack it on a table, throw it in the bin. So they selectively bred effectively for healthier, better looking populations.
True. You just asked me about a myth of what I know about, or you earlier, Paul Bunyan.
I know the name. I don't know the.
Paul Bunyan was it's an American tall tale of and he had this massive blue ox named Babe or Blue, or I forgot his name.
I think I've seen the Simpsons might have done like one of
They might have done a
flashback ones on
tall
this or something.
tales. Yeah. And he was a lumberjack. So, he would clear a forest just with one hack of his axe. So that's one of them. So I'm sorry. I totally went off.
No, that's good. I didn't even think of Paul Bunyan.
So you're talking about the Aztecs and their giant.
Yeah, there was one I found. I couldn't find many. The giant of Tlaxcala. The X is in the middle of words in Spanish.
Tlaxcala?
That sounds about right. 16th and 17th century chronicles mention large bones like femurs and molars that the local indigenous people presented to the Spanish, claiming they belonged to humans. One paper states at the end of the 16th century, the Tlaxcala, they showed Hernan Cortes a giant femur that had been buried in the ground. Same sources say that a lot of the giant bones were found in the basin of Mexico and the adjacent areas, but they later digs found just a lot of mammoth and elephant bones. So they're guessing they probably showed them like an elephant femur, but that then leads sort of into where a lot of these myths probably came from, like extinct megafauna. So this was one interesting thing I found is
like the giant sloth.
Yeah, like the giant sloth, stuff like that. So one thing I found is if you don't have any anatomical or medical training, someone could show you an elephant's pelvis and like femurs, and you could probably be convinced it was from a big person if you weren't looking at it right in front of you. Like if someone showed you a 3D model of it and went, "Oh, this is from a person," you go, "Oh yeah, that's a person's. It has all the same stuff. It's got the ball and socket joint, flared end. It's like a single straight bone." Whereas most animal skeletons, you look at them and you go, "It's not a person's bone." Like immediately you just know.
Right,
so they got
right.
stuff. But the remains of those things are tied to loads of myths and legends. Going back to the Cyclops, they found fossilized dwarf elephant skulls in ancient Greece and Sicily.
And that thing was, I believe, because of it, there's like their socket is just like one big open socket, right?
The trunk socket is like this big open section, so they assumed it was from an
eye for to look out of.
And they think that's the origin of the Cyclops. The skulls were kept and displayed as relics of the heroes that supposedly slew these monsters. Some other cool ones. Gigantopithecus is my favorite one.
The massive monkey, right?
Yeah, the real life Bigfoot. Because this thing's bone structure would have allowed it to walk upright. But they thought for a long time that it was like an offshoot of humans, alongside like Neanderthals and the other different ones. But they think it's more like an orangutan relative. But this thing was like 200 to 300,000 ago, maybe up to 2 million years ago.
So he never really lived alongside modern man?
Possibly. Like our ancient ancestors, they think humans go back at least like 500,000 years now.
Well, they say that,
so
who knows in these...
And it's supposedly from Asia.
Right.
So we were there around then.
Well, and also who knows when these dense forests, if there's...
Still one or two of them.
If they're still looking, they could still find... there's still sightings of Bigfoot.
There's still...
and the abominable snowman over in... the Yeti over in... the Himalayas and those parts. So
there's still I want to say Africa, I think they have these orangutans that are nicknamed lion killers. Not orangutans, chimpanzees. They get to like 6.5 feet tall, and they actively fight with larger creatures that any chimp would stay away from.
Well, they just if they're discovering these things, I think it was within the last 120 years that they discovered the gorillas. So
Yeah, the gorilla was. I think they discovered it a few times, and then people go back looking for them. But because they're solitary, they don't live in
They're
packs.
way
They're
in the
so hard
mountain.
to
They're way in
find.
the
Yeah,
mountains. Yeah.
and they, the first thing a gorilla does when it sees you is beat its chest and scream, say, "Get the fuck away from
they
me!"
try
So
to-
dudes weren't going up to them.
They only do that. Yeah, or most of the time, if they could, like most animals, they just if they hear you, they'll just run away.
Yeah, yeah. So the thing I did look into gorillas a little bit because I was wondering if they were tied in. Turns out, like to get beaten or killed by a gorilla, you have to go out of your way to piss that gorilla off. They'll give you every single opportunity to walk away. They'll do like a beat their chest. They'll false charger. They'll roar. They'll show their teeth. They'll run up and like slap you and push you and then back off and then do it all again like 2 or 3 times over before they have a go at you. So you have to piss a gorilla.
They're also babies. If you had a water gun,
Yeah.
have you seen them like when it's raining and they don't want to get wet?
Yeah, that's the craziest thing. It's a universal thing. So that's raining and gorillas just go, oh shit, and they go get cover. Yeah, it's the funniest thing. But yeah, I went down a little TikTok rabbit hole of gorilla vids, watching them like when they put a kiddie pool inside a gorilla enclosure. Consistently, they all will just take turns getting in it and like spinning in a circle, splashing water everywhere.
True.
But yeah.
So I know there is a stereotype of the natives here and Native Americans and Latinos as being short, but the Europeans were kind of surprised when they met the Iroquois in upper northeast New York area because they were fairly tall for Native Americans. They were taller than some Europeans, most Europeans. So, that, were they giants or did they come across some Vikings? Because they also say Vikings came across before the
the Vikings are everywhere.
modern Europeans. So maybe who knows?
Who knows? I found a cool bunch. You know how there's like Homo sapien, and then everyone knows about like the Neanderthals. Turns out there's a bunch more.
Homo erectus.
Yeah, Homo erectus is what we descended from. And then they think, Neanderthals probably were just mated out of existence. Like we just kept hooking up with them. Because women were attracted to the masculine features, especially back when we were a bit more primate-like. And then men, on the other hand, would put their dick in anything. So they didn't care what the female ones looked like if they could smash. But then there was this Homo heidelbergensis. Comes from Africa, Europe, and West Asia. They averaged between 5'9" to 6'6", and this is 700 to 200,000 years ago. So they probably died off as a result of just not being able to sustain themselves at that size. Especially, I mean, you think like Africa, for example, it's a lot of walking around to find your next food source compared to like jungles and such.
And, hippos, alligators,
things like that.
Snakes.
Yeah. Neanderthals, supposedly very, very big. They peak out at like 5'5", which is pretty crazy, but stocky. Like 30% more jacked than the average person, and their bones had insane bone density. We got the Denisovans as well. They're like 1.8 to 2 meters tall, so like pushing up towards that 6'4". Also, massive jaws, apparently, so they're thinking probably Neanderthal-ish in size. Homo longi, which is the dragon man. They think that's the nickname for it. Probably just an offshoot of Denisovans. They find those in China. Homo nadelli, they're like 4'9", but they were up to like 236,000 years ago. So they were pushing like a ride along with us. They could have easily been around today. And then we've got Paranthropus robustus. They're like 4 to 4.5 foot tall, but they were nicknamed the Nutcracker Man by scientists because apparently they were fucking yoked. Even compared to like Neanderthals, these things would have just been like bodybuilder.
What's that?
Physiques.
What's that? That weird genetic disorder where you just get jacked, your muscles are just growing.
Or myostatin deletion, something along those lines. Yeah, there's the theory that one theory is that we interbred with a lot of them over time, and that's where a lot of these disorders come from. So, like they say that Europeans, we tend to have more Neanderthal DNA compared to like South Americans and Asians, which has like upsides for like there's a disorder where your bones are like 3 times more dense. It's next to impossible to break your bones, but you also just sink if you try to swim because your bone density's off. It's apparently way more common in people of European ancestry than anywhere else.
Well, I mean, there's still people that were born with webbed feet, webbed fingers. So I mean,
that's a cousin fucking type thing, I think.
No, they say it's still when we, descended from fish.
Maybe
not
maybe,
fish,
maybe
but
fucking enough of your cousins
not
is
fish,
how you make fish people.
But
again.
Due to the evolution.
Yeah. So I found but I mean, throughout history, none of these really got over 7 foot. But then again, when everyone else was when 5'2" was considered big, 7 foot guy was a fucking monster.
A 6 foot guy was a monster.
Yeah. And then, of course, like you had to be either pretty well built, because, I mean, 200,000 plus years ago, we had tools, but it wasn't advanced, so you needed the muscle frame to be able to hunt.
Or a group. I mean, there was that whole thing, what is it, a few months ago, 100 people versus a gorilla. And, our good old friend Ashton said, people were killing mammoths back in the day. A group of people were killing mammoths, so...
Yeah. Well, we ran it down. We were endurance hunters.
Right.
Yeah.
So the same thing was what he said,
Yeah, a gorilla's not going to last. I mean, if 100 guys bum rush a gorilla, I think the gorilla wins. But if
it's 10, even if it's 10, even if it's
for a bit,
even if it's 10 or 15 people running at it, then running back, then running at it, then running back, just kind of, like a boxer just weaving, but going back and forth.
You lose a few guys in the process, but eventually it's going to lay down, and then you guys just take turns kicking it in the throat. Yeah.
So I mean, even though we might be short in stature, or some people are, they're taking down giants. They're taking down massive animals. So
most of the time, ancestors. Supposedly it was you ran them to the point where they literally laid down and gave up, and you walked up and just shanked them a few times safely.
Hey, all's fair in love and war.
That's it. When you got to eat, I found some more other cool things. I mean, this is just like on the side of things. We'll go a bit deeper though, because I wanted to go like, what are some of the hoaxes of giants that got out there? Can you think of any off the top of your head?
I know there was some dude who spent an absorbent amount of money in like the late 1800s to like make a cast.
It's my first one on my list.
Is it? Yeah. And it's funny because he even did like the like a mummified, and the dude still the fake giant that he did had like his dick still out.
Yeah, still had his dick out.
And I believe the story goes he sold it, but a circus bar. What's his name? A ringleader, Barnum and Beatty, but try to buy it and sue it, or say that he had the original. It's a weird story if you want to go into it, or if you have more information.
Got a whole thing on it. Yeah, the Cardiff Giant.
The Cardiff Giant.
Yeah, so it's one of the most famous archaeological hoaxes in American history. It was 10 feet tall, 3 meters, about 3,000 pounds, and supposedly petrified. So it was meant to be a petrified guy. Uncovered in October 16, 1869 by workers who were digging a well behind the barn of a guy named William C. Stubb Newell in Cardiff, New York. He immediately covered the giant with a tent and turned it into an attraction. First day it was announced, it was free to view, and then right after he's like, you got to pay money. So like build up the hype. It and an unauthorized copy still exist today, so you can still go and view it. So you've got the Cardiff Giant Farmers Museum, and then the other one is in Fenimore Farm, and in Farmington Hills, Michigan is where you can go to see the copy. And the original one is where it gets sketchy, because now there's a bunch of other copies. One of them is the original. No one knows which one's the original, but there's a few other ones.
They can't carbon date his foreskin?
No.
I mean, not his foreskin, his circumcised wee-wee?
No, can't do none of that. But it's interesting. So it was created by a New York tobacconist named George Hull, super into science back in the day. and then he got into an argument with the reverend at his Methodist church, and because they were talking about Nephilim and giants and all that sort of stuff, and basically it was him versus the entire congregation, so he loses just by default of everyone being against him. So he's like, right, I'm gonna fuck with these people just to prove my point. He goes and I believe he'd read about a story in 1858 where someone else had published a fake a letter claiming a prospector had been petrified when he drank a liquid he found in a geode, which is just,
A rock.
1800s. Yeah, it's one of those hollow rocks where you crack it and there's like minerals inside, and an empty section of mystery liquid, which most of the time is just water with some salt, sometimes filled with dangerous bacteria you probably shouldn't drink.
Not mercury, right?
Possibly. Could be mercury or something in there, who knows. Other newspapers published a bunch of other stories, so they think inspired by this. He hired a man named H.B. Martin. Oh, no, accompanied by a man named H.B. Martin. They quarry out a 10-foot by 4.5-inch long block of gypsum in Fort Dodge, Iowa. Tell him it's intended to be a monument to Abraham Lincoln. He then ships the block to Edward Burkhart in Chicago, a German stone cutter, hires 2 sculptors named Henry Sowell and Fred Mormon to create this giant. Still unclear whether Burkhart had any clue what he was involved in, or if he was just being hired to carve a statue. And then he wanted it to imitate himself. So he basically had the statue carved to look identical to himself. But then he spoke with an expert and a geologist who knew about petrification. And the guy was like, all right, well, your hairs wouldn't be petrified. So he's like, great, you got to shave its head, shave its beard. It ended up being, 10 feet, 4.5 inches, weighed 2,990 pounds. And then they stained it, burnt it with acid, just gave it that weathered look. He then wiped it down with a sponge soaked with sand and water to like weather it further. They beat it with like steel knitting needles embedded in a board, so just like whacking away at this thing to chip off sections. They rubbed it with sulfuric acid to give it a vintage-like color. And then
lacquer, what are they? They're preparing wood. They're staining wood.
Exactly, yeah. And then in November 1868, it's transported by railroad to his cousin's farm, William Newell, which is where it's discovered. By then, he'd spent $2,600 which is the equivalent of about 61,000 by today's standards.
That's a hell of a con to get back at your congregation, and a long game. And not only that, the people back then kept a secret to keep this conspiracy going. It's like those people were tight-lipped. Imagine the people who, I mean, you buy the rock, you take it to a sculptor, you have people beat on it, you then transport it.
Yeah, it's a lot of people definitely
involved.
Managed to keep their mouth shut the moment they saw this. So then, they go and they bury it. He waits a full year.
He's playing the long fucking game.
He's playing the long game, a full year, and then they hire guys to go dig a well, and he's like, "This is where it needs to go, in this exact spot."
He's probably one of those sticks to
the 2 wooden tree branches or whatever, divining it. So they're digging it up. One of the guys purportedly exclaimed, "I declare some old Indian has been buried here." So immediately, like it's a Native American skeleton. Let's fuck with that. First day, visitors could view it with no fee. Next day, a tent set up, and they charge each person 50 cents, which is probably like hundreds of dollars, I think.
It's probably at least $10 in today's money.
Well, it was 2,600 was to 60,000, so that's
probably about $2 then.
Yeah, like $2-3. Still
$150, $2. That's still a lot.
Yeah. I couldn't find the number of visitors went from about 300 to 500 per day. So he was making.
He's getting his money back.
His return on investment.
Yeah. But what's worth more, you getting your money back or fucking fooling people?
You'd want to at least break even, I think, after this long con. A lot of people believed it was a petrified man. A lot of people showed up and went, "This is a statue. This is clearly a statue, and we've been fooled." But those who believed it was real thought it was one of the giants mentioned in Genesis, or the Genesis verse about giants and Nephilim and stuff. So then it started getting religious attraction. The hotels and restaurants in the area report that like their visits and bookings were through the roof.
So the Nephilim went from the land of the Bible in the Middle East and showed up, or the Mesopotamia area, and then showed up in the New World somehow.
Yeah, something like that.
Interesting, if they believe it.
So then a fellow named Andrew D. White, first president of Cornell University, takes a trip out. He's just using his knowledge. He goes, no one would dig a well here. There's zero reason for this to be a location. He's like, off of that alone, I think this is a hoax, without even having to go further into examining the body. But he said that for the channels in the bottom part of the giant, for the grooving to have been created by the local grey limestone would have required years. So now he's a little like, maybe it really is petrified and weathered over time, not taking into account
that they beat the shit out of it.
He beat the shit out of it. A paleontologist from Yale named Othniel C. Marsh examined it and pointed out it was clearly gypsum and had been weathered down on purpose. And eventually Hull sold his part interest for $23,000, which is the equivalent of $572,000 in 2004. So
he got his money back.
He got his money's worth. Yeah. He sold it to a syndicate. They moved the body to Syracuse, New York. Some guy named P.T. Barnum.
Barnum, that's the dude from the circus.
Yeah, offered $50,000 for it. So we're pushing up towards over $1 million just to have access to that. They refused him. They hired someone to model its shape in wax and create a plaster copy, which then he displayed in New York, claiming that was the real version. The newspapers reported it, blah-de-blah. And then eventually David Hannum was quoted as saying, there's a sucker born every minute, in reference to the spectators seeing it. Eventually Hull confessed everything. And in 1870, both giants were revealed as fakes. The judge also ruled that Barnum could not be sued for terming a fake giant a fake, because they're like, we bought this and you destroyed our business. And he's like, the guy's just telling the truth. You can't sue him for that. So he came out of it pretty well. He claimed that he didn't confess because of the criticism, but confessed proudly that he intended for the hoax to be exposed to reveal the tendency of the Christian community to believe things too easily and to counter the fundamental belief that giants once roamed the earth. So the guy's long con really paid off, because now he's got international publication spreading of this information.
So that's the, we always talk about where's the proof on these conspiracy things, these conspiracy topics that we've been talking about. If they do believe that the giants roamed and we hear these stories, where are they? You just made a comment a few months back about finding a femur from an elephant or a mammoth, and back then you could be fooled, but now it's like, oh, no.
It takes one expert who goes, I spent my life studying the toes of human beings. I know what one looks like.
Correct. So it's
just takes that just 1 foot fetishist who's like, something's off about the anatomy.
What we talk about Bigfoot, where you don't know Bigfoot's died.
I think Bigfoot's real. I just think he is blurry.
Just a big blur.
He just exists as a blurry being.
Like Lost. Have you ever watched the show Lost? It's just a cloud.
He summons a mist around him that disrupts electronics. Yeah. I found a whole bunch of other hoaxes like this, though. They got the Tilbury giant in 1764 France. The giant bones just turned out to be an assortment of fossilized remains of large animals, probably mammoths.
Well, I mean, you could pick and choose different bones and try to put something together.
I mean, people were doing that with like dinosaur bones for a while. They were just assembling them at random and going, I think this is what it looked like.
But it's, we have skeletons and we kind of know what a human skeleton looks like. But if you look at like different animals that die and you look at their bones, you're like, what the fuck was this animal?
Some are crazy. If you ever seen the skeleton of a penguin?
No.
Or even whales, do they have finger bones? It's just completely wrapped. Like they have the same.
For the whales, yes. I've seen that. It looks like,
Yeah, they basically got hands, and you would never guess that it's just one big solid piece unless you've seen
A
the
whale.
skeletons of other similar things. Yeah, I found the Teotubocus, there's another French giant, 1613. They found some peasants found a 25-foot tall man. They claimed it was the skeleton of Teotubocus, the legendary king of the Cimbri, a tribe that the Romans defeated. King Louis the 13th's court examined it, and the books that were printed about the find, they like published stuff on it. Also turned out to be a mastodon. It's another elephant. The giant of Castelnau, 1890 France. The French just keep getting tricked into thinking that giants are real.
And they are French.
Yeah, they found a Bronze Age cemetery in Castelnau-le-Lez. Professor Georges Vaca de la Puge found massive human-like bones, femurs, tibias, humeri, published that it belonged to a man over 11.5 feet tall. Reported in scientific journals and was considered legitimate for a while by anthropologists. Again, identified as Pleistocene mammals, animal bones.
Well, I mean, I guess we can't fault the French too much because Andre the Giant, I believe, was French, right?
Yeah, true. We got the giant of Clearwater. This is a more recent one, 1940s Florida. Supposed 10-foot giant. Briefly accepted by local newspapers and even by the Florida Geological Survey. Turned out to just be cement and plaster.
Florida man. Man.
And then you start getting into, we also got the giant of Cerro del Toro, 1950s in Mexico. 2.6 meters tall, so not unreasonable in size. That's put it towards what?
Seven
and a
five,
half, something like that, yeah.
7'4". I mean, that's still getting up there.
Yep.
Yao Ming, maybe?
Yeah, some stuff like that. The news treated it as authentic. The specimens were displayed publicly for a while. There's no record in any archives, but they think it was probably just animal bones and plaster slapped together. And then you start getting into, internet giants, where we start getting into 2000s Photoshop, things like that, start spreading all kinds of rumors, and it all just becomes gobbledygook at that point, where you can't really find any real hoaxes because everyone just...
It's like your aunt or uncle sharing shit on Facebook. Look at this giant. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, so I found all kinds of hoaxes and stuff. Then what have I got? What's my extinct? No. I mean, we got kind of the explanations for a lot of stuff. So obviously, we did live alongside big creatures for a while. That explains a lot.
Right. The mammoth were still roaming the earth when the pyramids in Egypt were being built.
And then, fossils. People kept finding fossils, and none of them had the knowledge to be able to put it together. Typically, they weren't being found by the smart people either. It was being found by the guy who digs the foundations for a building in like the fucking 3000 BC, and then boom, it's part of mythology. The giants who lived before us.
At least those people were part of mythology. They didn't know better.
Yeah,
and they were trying
no education,
and they
whatsoever.
were trying to make sense. And even their people, their priests or their people hired, they were trying to make sense of the world. So when it was something that they couldn't explain, it was the gods, or they tried to, the stories of dragons. They would see dinosaur bones and be like, "Oh, this was a dragon."
Yeah.
So
there's some theories that dragons might have existed, not in the way that we interpret them, but one thing we know about things that can fly is they have hollow bones, and hollow bones don't hold up well to fossilization. So, I mean, think about
there's pterodactyls that they found and stuff like that.
Those ones, I mean, they didn't fly so well, apparently, pterodactyls. Because of their bones, they sort of glided, and they'd swoop down from a high spot, take you out, and then they'd have to make their way back up again.
Well,
then something that could actually fly probably wasn't lasting as long. Also, hollow bones means someone takes a swing at you, you're getting shattered.
Are you talking about hollow bone theory?
Hollow earth, hollow bone
theory.
Yeah, all the hollow creatures live beneath the surface now.
Well, there was this pterodactyl, the biggest one species is Quetzalcoatlus or something like that, and it was the size of a jet fighter. It was massive.
It's a massive one. I mean, there was the I think I told you about this, like an eagle that I believe it was the Maori event, like purposely hunted to extinction because it was big enough to pick up toddlers and just fly away with the kids.
California condor, the
Yeah.
condors of Andes.
Yeah.
I've seen going to Peru. I saw a replica of a Andes condor, and massive,
Crazy ones.
massive
I went to
wingspan.
a museum in New Zealand. They had like the dodo birds are so much bigger than you'd think. They come up to like your chest. Then so a lot of big stuff was getting hunted. Because you get a lot of meat for one hunt, and also big stuff's threatening. So even if giants possibly did exist, they probably were hunted intentionally because you don't want the 12-foot guy next door to get angry and come for you. Assume even if you're on friendly terms, which tribes were not back then. You had extra kids so you could trade women to keep things cool with you.
We're not friends now. What do you think?
Exactly.
In a civilized world.
That's it. That's a good point. Yeah. And then another thing is a lot of myths, in almost every culture have this idea of the giants that were here before. Like there was the giants before us, and then they were gone away. The Aztec one said that the giants were here as like a whole race that covered the earth, and then the gods just wiped them from existence and tried again with humans.
Right.
Like
that they destroyed the world 5 times or 4 times, and we're living in the 5th world. And a lot of natives, whether it's here in the Americas, Hawaii, they believe mountains were people also, and and so it's
Might be real.
Might be real.
But then we start getting into the cool stuff. What do you know of the Anunnaki? This is my favorite conspiracy theory of
Aren't they the Nephilim also? Aren't they the same thing?
Not necessarily.
Are they the Watchers?
The Watchers. So the Anunnaki goes down one of two pathways. At least when it starts to get a real conspiratorial.
Are we taking both? Are we going down both roads?
So the Anunnaki were Sumerian and Mesopotamian gods. They were like, pretty much you see the resemblance in a lot of the gods of pantheons. Like they had the god of the heavens, who was the god of all the gods, and then the earth Zeus, god, the air god, Zeus and wisdom, love and war, sun, the moon, stuff like that.
So Hades, not Hades, Hades, gosh, I'm drawing blanks in my Roman and Greek gods, but pretty much the same system.
Yeah,
prior to the Greeks.
Yeah, and or
the Egyptians.
Yeah, so they reportedly came down from the heavens. So Anunnaki literally means the princely offspring of the heavens. So then you've got the fact that they descended from the skies. In their creation myths, the Anunnaki lived alongside us and sort of helped us to shape society and taught us their ways. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, which I think you would have heard of Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
Yeah, they appear as the judges of the dead, which is cool. In the Atrasis epic, a flood story that predates the Bible.
But I'm pretty sure that's where the Bible got their story, right?
Yeah. So the gods, led by Enlil specifically, create humans to perform labor for them.
So that's slaves?
We literally got made to just do their work. The Anunnaki later punish humanity with a great flood when humans get too noisy or rebellious. They're like, we'll just wipe some of you out and make some more. Then, of course, the Hebrew, Greek, biblical stories, Nephilim, flood of Noah, probably inspired by that. Or maybe it's real. God just flooded the earth because he hated all the sodomy.
Or the gooning in Gomorrah.
Yeah, or the gooning in Gomorrah. So we got a few, and there's a few other stories I found that mention the Anunnaki, but this is where we get into the really cool stuff. So there's 2 pathways with the Anunnaki. One goes down like the psychedelic psychonauts route, where the Anunnaki are often purported to be the beings that you meet while in these psychoactive trips. I can attest I've met creatures while on DMT that accurately are described in a lot of these books. I met a fella named the Gatekeeper, who's just this giant humanoid being, but he has a giant crystal for a face, and he guards the gates, and the gate is where you go through to get to the real DMT realm, and if he thinks you're not ready, he turns you around, sends you back.
And you lose your high?
Hey, you keep your eyes. He's a cool dude.
No, you're high.
Oh,
If
yeah,
if
you
turn-
immediately come back and you're like, I'm sober now. What the fuck? After just like swinging through interdimensional hallways and other gods like waving at you and saying hi. Then this guy goes, nah, dude,
You
if you
ain't
go
ready."
through, you're not coming back the same. We can't do that. But when I saw him, a giant for a start, very big. And as he moves, like your perspective shifts so that he appears to be different sizes based on how he moves. So the giant stuff there, that's like loose. That's the guys who've gone too far into psychedelics and got that sort of stuff. Then you get the modern ancient astronaut interpretation, which says that these myths of beings descended from the sky as gods is just ancient interpretation of alien visitors coming down. They hung around with us and showed us their ways in the sense that they were just providing us with guidance with their advanced technology. And when they say that we were invented to work for them, some people believe that our drive to innovate and create new things was genetically programmed into us by the Anunnaki so that they could go off and just live their lives and then come back every few thousand years to see what we've been up to and see if we've innovated anything of interest to them. They propose that they don't come from ancient Mesopotamia, but from a planet called Nibiru. You heard about these theorized extra planets in our solar system that are
like Planet X and stuff like that.
So they think, it's one of those ones that's orbit is so wide because you know how planets don't orbit in a circle; they orbit like an oval and twist. They think it comes past us every 3,600 years, and they will leave their planet during a few-year period where they're close enough, come visit, and then they head back, and we don't see them for another 3,600 years. And in that time is when they come to visit and see what we've been up to, see if our advances have been of any interest, or maybe they're just waiting for our population to get big enough
to enslave us.
Yeah, to enslave us, turn us into food, who knows what. Maybe
but they're giants. But they're
probably
giants.
giants. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when
possibly,
you said,
or just in spacesuits or crafts that we interpret as people, even though because none of them are described as having human features. They're described as like Ra with the Sphinx heads
and they were always
the dog
heads,
heads.
and specifically in those Egyptian hieroglyphs, the bigger you are, the bigger they carve you in, the more important you are. So, they would show normal people, and they would show these gods that were 2 or 3 or 4 times bigger than other carvings. And when you just said giving us their technology or teaching us, almost sounds like in the Bible when the angels are giving us technology or wisdom that we're not supposed to have.
The extraterrestrials coming past. Some real fringe, the theories I found think that they might be not sanctioned by the other members of their planet. That's why we only get a few. It's like an extremist group swinging out to come do something without telling the rest of the planet. And
the woke aliens?
Maybe they're prepping for to throw us as meat shields in their war and uprising.
True.
Who knows?
Operation Human Shield.
Yeah. I mean, that's the Anunnaki theories there. I do like that one because I've met quite a fair number of people who will vehemently argue with me that it's correct. And it's far more popular. But also a lot of, and I did look through a bunch of photos of like the Anunnaki, the ancient Egyptian stuff, and a lot of it looks like how you'd imagine ancient people's interpretation of a spacesuit might look when you think, oh, this thing has like a really animalistic head. Is oh no, it was probably just a helmet with features.
And they didn't know how to explain it at that moment.
Some of them say that they rode off into the sky in a chariot that spewed fire behind it. They're describing a jet propulsion. Although you'd think they wouldn't be taking jets to get to and from Earth, but maybe that's why they wait until they're close because they don't have that interstellar travel and high speed worked out.
Well, maybe exactly. Maybe they're traveling light years at light speed, and when they get close or when they take off, they have to slow it down.
Or maybe they reached technological peak and we're going to reach that as well, where that sort of travel just isn't possible, that warping space-time and exceeding the speed of light. So maybe that's why they genetically created us is so while they're working on it, they're hoping we figure something out.
Well, the universe is so fucking big, and then, it takes 8 minutes for the light of the sun to get to us, and I think like the closest star to us is over 1,000,000 years away, going light speed. So
Something crazy.
I mean,
yeah.
that light, light that we're seeing now from the closest star was.
I think there's one that's within a few thousand years.
But even then, a few thousand years, it's okay. Let's say 4,000 years ago. Guess what? I mean, civilization was literally still like, hey, we can't drink water. Hey, we don't bathe. You know what I mean?
So maybe they created us to innovate. I mean, I just saw a story. China has found out a way to send information, like digital information, without not wireless, but using quantum entanglement, where they could theoretically send this info anywhere in the universe within an instant because it doesn't travel. It just simply is there by interacting with shit that's connected on some level, stuff that's beyond you or I. But if the Anunnaki say they live long lives, or maybe they live really short lives, or maybe they don't reproduce as fast, and they thought, let's just create a species that fucks and creates so many of themselves. They're all a little different, and they all want to research something in a different way. Something will get invented by them that we don't have to work on.
What if these aliens goon?
I do wonder that as well, actually, now. Maybe that's how their society fell apart. That's why they need us.
That's why they came to save us. I mean, they came to teach us our ways. Like, don't be gooning.
They're like, oh, here's all of our technology. We'll be back in 3,600 years. We're going back to our goon cave till then.
Like, here's all our technology. And in those 3,600 years, what did we do? We created porn, streaming, sex bots.
That's what's displaying inside their spacesuit masks, is just like a constant display of alien porn. And suck my jag on.
Oh, my jag on, want a potty?
Yeah. So then I found, and then of course the Anunnaki do show up a bunch. They show up in other religions. The echoes of them appear in the Old Testament, Canaanite gods, Greek myths, angelology, where you look at like modern day deities and supernatural beings, and they all are reminiscent of the Anunnaki in some way or form. So that's pretty cool.
That is pretty sweet.
Yeah. I think that's everything I touched on there. I didn't miss any.
Motherfucking giants. Well, our one fan who listens to us, what do you think? You believe in giants?
I hope he does. Otherwise, he's wasting our time with this bullshit.
I think it's for our own entertainment, Josh, why we do this.
It is. Well, I'm convinced. I think giants are real. I think they're all dead. I think we hunted them into extinction, whatever giant species there were.
So they don't exist. They existed.
They existed. Yeah. That's it. Well, that's all. Provide suggestions, comment, please. We need viewership. We're so desperate.
We need love. We don't function without the approval of others or the disapproval.
If we get to 10 views on our next video, we'll do whatever topic is the highest voted comment.
Deal.
That's a deal. All right.
Thank you.
Peace out, people.
Next time.